Hello and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm Brenda Winkle, and this podcast is for high-performing, empathic women who are ready to stop second-guessing themselves and start trusting what they know. Maybe you're successful in your career or business. People rely on you. You make difficult decisions every day, and yet sometimes the moment someone else's emotions, expectations, or opinions enter the conversation, your own clarity starts to disappear. If you've ever wondered, how can I be so confident everywhere else in my life but struggle to trust myself when it comes to my own needs, you are in the right place. Each week, we'll explore self-trust, nervous system regulation, emotional energy, boundaries, intuition, and the everyday moments where your life changes, not because you've become someone new, but because you learn to stay connected to yourself. I'll share client stories, my own experiences, practical tools, and honest conversations to help you stop abandoning yourself and start creating a life that's truly your own. Because I believe you already know more than you trust, and that is a yes-filled life. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to Your Yes-Filled Life. I'm your host, Brenda Winkle. Today on the podcast, we're going to be doing something I've never done, which is I am going to put down my hat, my proverbial hat, as a coach or a psychic medium, and I'm going to be your friend. And those of you who have me in your life as your friends, you will know this version of me. And those of you who haven't met this version of me yet, welcome. And I am doing this because I love you and I care enough about you that I want you to know something. So I want you to imagine that we are out at dinner. We're having a great time. We've got great food, great beverages, whatever it is that you enjoy when you're connecting with your friends. That's what you and I are doing right now, okay? And as you talk to me, I'm not in the role of your coach. I'm not in the role as your psychic medium. I'm in the role of your friend who loves you and cares about you. And that's where we're going to start this episode. So as we get into today's topic, we're going to be talking about the idea that you can do all the personal and professional development work in the world, but if you are unwilling to look at the habits, situations, environments, relationships, etc., that are creating challenges, insight alone won't actually create the change that you're seeking. You could read every book, go to therapy, listen to every podcast, sign up for every summit, even hire a coach. You can journal, meditate, practice breath work all the livelong day and be incredibly self-aware. You can take every professional development course available to you, and a lot of us do that. But if you're unwilling to look at your choices, your habits, your boundaries, your standards, your situations, and relationships that keep producing the same results, that work will only take you so far. Will you get benefits? Yeah, of course you will. But there's going to be a cap. And if you have been doing professional development work or personal development work and you have been hitting a cap, this might really hit for you because this might feel like you're not gaining traction. It might feel like frustration. It might feel like, why isn't this working? And it's because there's something that we need to let go of, something we need to shift, something we need to look at differently. This is one of the main reasons that I created Power Self-Trust for Empaths to be a year-long experience, because it takes time. It takes time for us to move through awareness and insight into the actual behaviors that might allow us to actually change. In fact, I like to think of a 4-part cycle, and I like to think about it moving in a clockwise fashion with those 4 slices of pie, so to speak. The first one is awareness that a change is needed. And that's a place where so many of us get stuck. We know we need to change. We know that there's something that doesn't feel good. It feels crunchy. We find ourselves stressed or sad or overwhelmed or overthinking or worried or in fear or constant just gripping onto our lives, worried about our family, worried about finances, worried about work, worried about whatever it is. But we're not actually doing anything in that section of the cycle of change. We're just there aware that something needs to change. And then we can move into the second little section of the cycle of change, and that is where we are preparing to change. And in that preparation stage, we're gathering information. We're doing research. We're determining what we think would be the best way to proceed. We're figuring things out. We're starting to kind of do a practice or a pretend of, well, if I made this change, what would I do? And then we make more decisions to sort of prepare for the change. Now, those first two cycles, or not cycles, but the first two stops in the cycle of change, the awareness of the change, where we need one, and the preparing for a change are where people often get stuck. And the problem is that a lot of times we'll get stuck there and not realize we're stuck, but feel frustrated that we don't yet have the results we want. Now, to be clear, this isn't about shaming anybody. And so this is not where this episode is going, I promise. Because the truth is, in any change, there is this part of the process where my coach, Tiffany Carter, calls the dirty diaper phase, where like you're sitting in shit for a while. And in any part of any type of meaningful change that you're going to make in your life, there is this dirty diaper phase. Okay. And it can come at any stop along the cycle of change, depending on your own situation. And so I want to normalize that that is part of it. There's this really uncomfortable period. We'll get into that in just a minute. But in the awareness of change phase, a lot of times we think that because we're aware that a change is necessary, that we're actually doing something about it. And we think in the second phase, the preparing for a change, we think that because we're aware of the change and we're researching things to get ready to do the change, that we're actually changing. Those sections of the cycle of change, awareness and preparing for change, are really important in the cycle of change. They're necessary, but they're also a little bit like quicksand where you can get stuck in them for a long, long time. And again, this is why I created Power to be a year, because in a year, you might be able to complete the cycle, because stage 3 on the cycle of change is implementing the change. It's where you're doing the action, where you're changing how you're setting your boundaries. It's changing how you're looking at your own personal standards. It's changing how you communicate with yourself. It's changing how you advocate for your own needs. It's literally the action phase on the cycle of change. And then stage 4 on the cycle of change is where we are now integrating the change into the rest of our lives. The first half of the cycle of change, the awareness and the preparing, are important. And I can't stress this enough. They're worthy, they're important. And if you're there, that's okay. But here's the thing. There's a tipping point that you need to move from the preparing for change into the integrating change. And if you are not doing something, it feels very frustrating because it will feel like you're spinning your wheels out. Insight can happen in just a moment. Like maybe you just were like, whoa, I get it for the first time. It's the embodiment that happens over time. And in order for the embodiment to actually take root, we have to feel safe. And by its very nature, change, when the brain recognizes that there's a change, it's viewed as a threat. It is inherently unsafe for you to change as far as the brain is concerned, because your brain has been programmed to scan for anything that's different because a change could mean something life threatening. Like maybe you'll get chased by a tiger, or maybe there's a snake in the grass. And so your body and your brain are working together. So every time there's a change, you notice it. And then your brain ramps up its threat response or stress response. Maybe you call it being activated. Maybe you call it stressed. Maybe you call it, I don't know, whatever you call it. But I'm going to give you a really good example. My dog, Bentley, is a reactive dog. He has an extreme level of anxiety. This morning, we went out for our walk at the beginning of the day. It was a great walk. It was just business as usual. We had a nice time. It was fun. It was not stressful in any way. The second time we went out for a walk, my neighbor 2 doors down had taken her car out of the garage and backed it into the driveway so she could wash it. When Bentley took one look at that car, he lost his marbles. The hair on the back of his neck stood up straight. He started to growl. His body got tense. He started to bark at a car in the driveway because he recognized a change. Bentley's brain told him that was a threat. He doesn't have control over whether his brain codes something as a threat or not. His brain signals his nervous system, ooh, change, danger. Your brain does the same thing. So when you get ready to try and implement a change, if you haven't been working with your nervous system to be able to tolerate the discomfort of recognizing, ooh, a change, your brain will send out all kinds of danger signals and it will stop you. So when we start to build that capacity to sit in discomfort of, ooh, this is a change, I'm feeling a way about this, and we work with the nervous system to create safety with tapping or breath work or somatics, then we can start to implement some changes. But embodiment happens only through that repetition. It happens over and over and over and over again. So the third time I took Bentley out for a walk, we knew the car was there. And I told Bentley, there's a car in the driveway. And Bentley's really, really, really smart. So I can speak to him like that. I was like, car is still in the driveway and you're fine. So we just went a little bit more slowly. We stayed on the porch for a second while he could assess the threat of the car. And then he looked up at me, got a little piece of string cheese, and off we went on our walk. So he's repatterning. And the same thing is happening for you as you start to repattern things, moving from the awareing and preparing stage into the implementing stage if you're working on your nervous system. That's why power is a year, because it takes time. It takes repetition. So again, if we look at the cycle of change, we have awareness, then we have preparing, then we have implementing. The implementing is where we're taking action. And this is really why I want to talk to you today and to share with you the things that I would share with you if I wasn't your coach and I didn't want to hurt your feelings. Because there are some things that you're doing that are keeping you from moving from the preparing stage into the implementing stage. Okay, so we're going to take a metaphor first before we dive right into this. Have you ever tried to wash out a jar that you maybe had jelly in? Maybe there was jelly or jam, and you need to clean it out for the recycling, or you want to clean it out because you want to run it in the dishwasher and save it, whatever the case is. You put it in the sink and you run water, and you're running water into the jar. And as the jelly or jam on the sides of the jar begins to loosen, it floats up to the top. And what you're waiting for as you're cleaning is for the water to run clear. When the water runs clear, then you know the jar's getting pretty close to clean, right? Okay. So if we imagine that you are the jar and the change that you want to implement is the water, the jam or the jelly represents some of the habits, beliefs, and behaviors that need to shift. If we continue to pour in water, and water in this metaphor could be your coaching or your therapy or your journaling. We keep pouring in water, but we're also continuing to refill the jar with jam. The water won't run clear. Even if we have the water that we're pouring in there running as fast and hard as it can. If we're pouring jam in as the water's releasing the jam on the sides, it won't matter because there's still jam in the jar. If you are continuing certain behaviors, certain relationships, lack of certain boundaries, it's like you're pouring jam back into the jar you're trying to clean. And I want to say this in the most loving way possible. Self-awareness can help you understand why a pattern exists. Self-leadership is asking you, what are you going to do about it? And I know you're a self-led person because you're attracted to this podcast. You can understand that you feel a level of fear around applying for the new job or around deciding that you're not going to feed your emotions with sugar, or understand that you've been avoiding difficult conversations, or understand why you keep saying yes when you mean no. All that understanding is really important, but it won't interrupt the pattern on its own. It's not enough to know it. Knowing it is good. And again, we've already established being aware of the change needed and then preparing for the change are important. But knowledge is only going to get you so far, especially if you're not willing to change a couple key things. Here's some examples. Knowing that you avoid rejection, that knowledge doesn't mean that it makes it any easier for you to submit the application without doing some work. Knowing that you overgive doesn't automatically create the boundary. Knowing that you reach for the gummy nerds late afternoon does not actually shift your blood sugar. Knowing doesn't do it. There's an action needed. Inside power, we don't stop recognizing just the pattern. We don't stop there. We recognize the pattern and then we lovingly work together to practice responding differently while real life is happening. And this is where self-trust becomes more than just an idea. Because here's the thing. Sometimes you aren't aware of how much jelly you're pouring back into your own jar. So one of the places that I see it a lot is with women who are in unhappy marriages, maybe abusive marriages. They do tremendous amounts of personal development work. They get therapy, they do the coaching, they're taking the actions, they are setting the boundaries in most cases in their lives, like in most topics of their lives. But then they go home and they're mistreated. There's total lack of reciprocity where they're carrying the entire load of the family. They're exhausted, they're depleted, and they come back to me and they're like, I don't know why I'm not changing. Well, it's because you're continuing to pour jelly into the jar that you're trying to clean. Another place I see it is with work. If you know that you are in a job that for you is not healthy, and you continue to tell me why you have to stay in that specific role, and you're unwilling to get any trainings or certifications to give yourself different opportunities, and you're unwilling to apply or even ask questions about other roles, you're pouring more jelly into your jar. Sometimes additional personal development can be a very sophisticated way that your ego has of delaying a decision. So you'll go do lots of personal development work and then just delay making the change. And what happens in clients who make the change is phenomenal. Again, I want to come back to what my coach Tiffany Carter calls the dirty diaper phase. There will be a phase at any one of these stages where it feels like you're sitting in shit. And that's one of the reasons why we have to build up that nervous system capacity to allow ourselves to develop the ability to sit in the discomfort of change. I have one client who came to me because she wanted to increase her intuitive access. And that is still true. She's still working on her intuitive access. In fact, it's through the roof. It's really, really cool. Very, very amazing. She's incredibly talented. One of the things that became clear after our first year of working together was that one of the biggest things that was blocking her intuitive access was the fact that she was being mistreated, abused in her marriage. And we don't talk about this often enough because a lot of times there's a stigma around what it looks like for abuse. And I don't know if you know this, but that was my story. 19 years ago, I left an abusive marriage with 2 suitcases, $400, and my 5-year-old. And a lot of us are really scared to make that kind of a change, to walk away from everything. And I'm not suggesting that you do that. Please don't hear that. That is not my suggestion on any stretch of the imagination. I am telling you that there will be a tipping point when you're willing to do the thing. And in some cases, that's the only way through. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody get a divorce. That's not it at all. I am suggesting that there may be behavior patterns, there may be relationships, standards, and boundaries that you're ignoring that are actually keeping you from moving into that implementation section of the cycle of change. And the discomfort can come from lots of different places. It could be fear of being a beginner or not wanting to become a beginner again. It might be that you don't want to risk rejection if you start applying for a different kind of role or you start putting yourself out there as a business owner. It might be that you're really uncomfortable investing in training and that's a really big stretch for you because you've never spent your money on yourself in that way before. It might be allowing someone to be disappointed and sitting with the discomfort of their disappointment without rescuing them so that you feel better too. It might be admitting that something has run its course. Maybe it's changing a familiar routine. Like, for example, I noticed that over the past several months, my Netflix watching had gone up a lot. And I was watching more TV, not TV, but Netflix than I had watched in a while. And I didn't like it. And I noticed it was impacting how I felt about myself. It was absolutely impacting my step count on my watch. I was noticing my resting heart rate was starting to raise. And I thought, wow, I need to make a change here. And so changing my routine to watching Netflix in the evenings, and instead now I go dancing and I go to my salsa and bachata classes. Changing that routine was not easy. I had to come up against with all the reasons I was telling myself I can't possibly. I'd have to cook dinner earlier. Okay, so let's cook dinner earlier. I'd have to eat dinner earlier. Okay, so let's eat dinner earlier. I'd have to leave Bentley. Yeah, most people leave their dogs home for more than an hour a day, so maybe he'll be fine. And there were all those things that I had to work through just to give myself the permission slip to go take dance classes. So when I say I have the utmost compassion for what this is like, I really do. I get it on so many levels. I get it in terms of health. I get it in terms of relationships. I get it in terms of behavior and routines and starting a business and being willing to walk away from careers into new careers. I get it because when we give up the temporary comfort / familiarity of whatever's current, there's a really uncomfy part in that. It's that dirty diaper phase. And one of the things we sometimes find ourselves resisting is taking responsibility for the result of whatever happened. I'll give you an example. When I went to Madison this year for my niece's graduation, there were cake and cakes at every event. Now, it probably would have been good for me to use some discernment and to choose only the cake that looked the very best. But no, I decided I was going to go on a cake tour of Wisconsin, and I had cake every day for 5 days. Well, naturally, I very quickly had a body response to that. I quickly got a little puffiness around my chin and my cheeks. My clothes didn't fit as well. And the result is I probably gained pounds. I didn't get on the scale to know that because I didn't really need to. But the truth is, nobody made me eat that cake. I ate the cake. I made the choice. And so sometimes there's a need to take responsibility for the result. But again, I'm saying this through the lens of the more love and compassion you can offer yourself, the more ability you have to move from the awareness and preparation stage of the cycle into implementing. Your life is responding to what you repeatedly do. So your life is shaped by what you believe. Your life is shaped by the energy you bring, but it's also shaped by what you repeat and what you allow. You can do all of the pouring the water into the jar to remove the jelly and the jam from the sides of the jar. But if you keep pouring more jelly into the jar, you're going to have more jelly in the jar, which means if you're doing all this personal development work and you're really taking care of yourself, you're doing a self Reiki practice, you're doing breath work, you're showing up for your support with your coach, you're doing all the things, and you're going home to an unhappy marriage where you're not treated with respect or dignity or reciprocity. There's only so much Reiki and breathwork can do. If you're going to a job that you hate and it feels like it's sucking the life out of you, there's only so much that your positive thinking and journaling is going to be able to do. You might have understandable reasons for doing the thing that you're doing, whether that's staying in a job or staying in a town or staying in a home or staying in a relationship or not starting a business or not writing the book. You might have really justifiable and understandable reasons, and only you know that. So there's no judgment here. Only you know what's right and best for you. You might be stressed and tired and overwhelmed and looking for comfort, and you deserve all the compassion in the world for that. And your body is still responding to what you repeatedly give it. So if you're continuing to put yourself in situations that are harmful, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, or physically, there's going to be a limit to how much benefit you're going to get from these other types of practices. So, for example, your career is responding to the applications you do or do not submit. Your business responds to the offers you do or do not make, or the way in which you're showing up to let people know you have a business. Your relationship is responding to the standards you set for yourself and to the boundaries you do or do not hold. Your finances are responding to the decisions that you repeatedly make. Your health is responding to the habits you consistently practice. Your nervous system is responding to the environments you repeatedly place yourself in. Your life is not punishing you, it's giving you feedback. Which is why I teach so much about the importance of finding joy. Joy is like your internal GPS system. And when you do things in the lens of chasing joy, to find joy just for the sake of it, it is so healing because it's going to help you feel what's possible. It helps you cleanse out your own jar. That's part of the reason I'm dancing all the time right now. It brings me so much joy. Regulation is not just to help you endure the pain. It's not just to let you give you more capacity to sit in the discomfort, although it does. It will help. It absolutely will help. It's also to help you find a new path, a path where you can create the life you really want, whatever that looks like in terms of work or relationships or finances or health. It's not just about feeling better all the time. It's about being intentional and building capacity to believe that you deserve to feel better, that you deserve to find joy, that you deserve to experience it. Sometimes regulation, I think most importantly, gives you the capacity to change the life you have. I know that for me personally, I would not be living the life I now live without breathwork and somatics. I just had a somatic coaching session this morning, my own session where I was the client, and I have every week for more than 3 years, almost 4 years at this point, every week, my own somatic coaching session. And it has become the anchor for my week. It is so important to me. And I value Sheena so deeply. And we coach each other. We've been through this together. And we were talking this morning at the end of our session that it feels like we've shifted now from doing inner child work and parts work into now we're expanding and we're plotting this new path. And that feels so exciting. And I want that for you. I want it to feel like you can finally let go of all the healing stuff and you can just create the life. But in order to do that, we have to create some change. And that's exactly the kind of capacity that we build inside power through the repetition, through the multiple cohorts. Not just the ability to identify what's wrong, but the ability to actually step into the implementation of how can I shift this? And then, even more importantly, once you get through the implementation phase where you're starting this, we're going to work you into integration. And that's why there's a pause between cohorts so that you can integrate the pillars of power, presence, optimize, wisdom, embodiment, renewal into your life. And then you come back for another cohort, try it again from a whole new angle. One of our participants in the last call last week said that taking power this time, it's her second cohort, was so cool because she can feel the changes that are happening. She can feel how it's integrating into her body. And that's the point. The thing I want for you is to be able to move from the awareness of change and preparation of change into the integrating phase. And for that, it takes some action. And that's what we do inside Power. That's the capacity that we build through the practices, the pillars, and the nervous system regulation work. It's not just the ability to identify what's wrong. That's not it. It's about allowing yourself to feel supported and grounded while you expand into this new life that only you get to create. And the cool thing is, a lot of your relationships are going to improve because when you look at the relationship you have with yourself and you're willing to take the actions that you know you need to take, a lot of times the resentments that you've carried for years begin to disappear. It's so cool. And when that begins to happen, you're going to notice that it's easier for you to stay grounded while you create changes. It's easier for you to practice a new way to respond, a new way to set a boundary, a new standard to uphold until it becomes a part of your identity. And when it becomes a part of your identity, ooh, then we know it has some staying power. So as you are doing the breath work, the Reiki, the coaching, listening to the podcast, listening to other podcasts, listening to other creators that I know you follow on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, I'm curious if you're using the right tool to solve the right problem, or is it possible you're asking mindset work to solve a practical problem, or breath work to solve a problem that's actually at your job, or your intuition to solve a problem that's actually your boundaries? Because what I will tell you is over the last several months, I've been very active on an app called Everclear, which is a psychic and empath phone line where you can get phone or text readings. And one of the things I see people get stuck in is thinking that insight into how somebody else is thinking or how somebody else is feeling is the answer. The answer isn't coming from outside. It's going to come from you. I want to be really clear here. I'm not telling you to do anything. I am trying to ask you some questions so you have some ideas to think through. So, if your job is toxic, maybe the next step would be to update your resume and think about ways in which you could allow yourself a different career or a different job. Maybe it's about researching a different certification or moving to a different state and getting certified if you need to in a different state for whatever it is you do. Maybe it's about asking somebody else in a different field if you could ask them some questions or shadow them for the day. Maybe it's just submitting one application. If your business isn't generating enough income, maybe the next step might be making an offer instead of sitting in Canva again or redesigning your webpage for the 43rd time. Maybe it's more about talking to people. And if a relationship repeatedly requires you to betray yourself, you notice a complete lack of reciprocity, you're being asked to carry everything, or you're being mistreated, maybe the next step is to take a look at your standards and set some new boundaries. Have that difficult conversation, reduce access, or maybe even leave. You cannot create a different outcome while you're protecting every habit that created the current one. That is so important. I'm going to say it again. You cannot create a different outcome while protecting every habit that created your current life. Now, this is not about blame. Not every problem is simple, right? There are real life consequences, real life ramifications. And this is certainly not about blaming people. There is no blame here if you found yourself in a situation that's not good for you, whether that is trauma or a disability or a health condition or financial pressures or discrimination or caregiving responsibilities or even systemic barriers. There's no blame here. Not every difficult situation can be solved by trying harder. Some changes actually do require time, money, support, planning, and access. And sometimes people are operating inside very real constraints. But I'd love for you to think about, where can you claim some agency? Where can you step a little bit more fully into your own power of choice? Is it a perspective change? Is it being willing to see love in the current situation? Is it being willing to love yourself so deeply that you raise the standard of what you're willing to tolerate and what you're willing to feel like? You don't need to have unlimited control in your life to begin to use the agency that you already have. So let's start small. Okay. I want to tell you, you don't have to leave the job today. You don't have to leave the relationship today. You don't have to cut out all sugar today. You don't have to do any big sweeping thing. In fact, I don't think that's the right thing. Instead, can you research one training? Can you research one healthier, sweet option? Can you look at adjusting one standard or one boundary? Could you submit one application? Can you make one new choice? Maybe it's like me. I decided I wasn't going to sit and watch Netflix. I was going to go meet people and dance. Now, I make it sound like it was a simple choice. Honestly, it wasn't. It wasn't a simple choice because it required me to pay money to join a dance studio. It required me to leave the house at the end of the day, which I am known to not like to do. It also required me to get out of my comfort zone and go meet new people. And it required me to dance in public, which, although I love to dance and I have always loved to dance, this is totally new because everything that I've danced before this studio was done in private lessons, and it was done only in communities of other people who were learning dance. This, this is different. This is me dancing in public at events, just like an event anyone could go to, you could go to. So did it take a little bit of courage on my part? Yeah, Sure did. Am I glad? Yeah, I sure am. And that's the feeling that you're probably going to have as you decide to step into these changes. There aren't very many decisions in life that are like all yes or all no. There's often a little bit of, well, I don't know if I want to change that. Or maybe it's even fear, or maybe it's resources that are holding you back. Just let it be what it is and take the next step, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just needs to be some type of forward motion. The familiar is often going to feel safer than the unknown, even if the familiar isn't what you want. So keep in mind that your nervous system might be coding any type of change as a potential threat. You might feel really scared. That's okay. It is very common for people to prefer something that they know, even if it's frustrating, than something they don't know. A new choice might threaten your sense of belonging or your sense of identity, might change how other people see you. That might be real. It might require you to become a beginner at something. And that feels away, but you can do it. And it might ask you to release an identity built around being helpful, being needed, being confident, being easy to please, or eager to please. Might require you to shift that. It might expose you to some rejection, and it might even cause you some grief. You might not be resisting the action itself. You might be resisting who you'll have to be in order to take that next step. And that's okay. Power is designed exactly for this threshold because I know that for me, as an empath, somebody who's really sensitive and caring, I could not have made the changes in my life without support. I needed support to leave an abusive marriage. I needed a whole agency to support me and then a lot of friends. I did not do it by myself. I moved into a shelter. I had a whole team of counselors and therapists and legal aid at my disposal. I had somebody who loaned me a car. I had a whole group of women who furnished my house after I left everything behind with those two suitcases. I did not do it by myself. I did not build my business by myself. I have had tremendous help and support and mentorship over the years. I have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in my own education to be the entrepreneur that I now am. I have signed up for masterminds that were terrible, that literally I felt like I wish I could have gotten my money back. I've signed up for incredible, life-changing retreats and masterminds. I've signed up for mentorship. And I still have coaches and mentors and healers on speed dial because I know I need it. I have all the ADHD tendencies. My daughter has ADHD. I have CPTSD, and you treat CPTSD and ADHD the same. So that's another story for another episode. But the point is, my brain works in a really specific way. And I know how much courage it takes to make changes. And I know that I had help along the way. And if you need help along the way, I am here for you. None of us who make meaningful changes in our lives are doing it by ourselves. I promise you that. No one is doing it by themselves. And the people that are doing it by themselves are not getting very far. Or they're lying. One of those two things. Power is for the person who already knows a lot of things, but needs that structure, support, and practice and communicate. Power is for the woman who already knows a lot, but needs the structure, support, practice, and community to live differently. It's for the person who's ready to stop collecting insights and move from that awareness and the preparation stage on the cycle of change into the implementation and integration, the one who's really ready to take the action. The wait list is where you begin if you know this is for you. Now, some people don't want a framework. Some people want a really personalized, customized plan. Maybe it's navigating a career transition or building out a business or tracking energy of your business or tracking energy of employees or even potential employees. Or maybe it's deciding to shift or change a relationship, maybe even ending a relationship, or maybe it's a significant business decision. Or maybe it's the person that knows they need to change, but just can't quite see the sequence of how to do that. Private coaching might be an option for you. And this is for the person who wants a customized strategy for her specific situation. We look at the whole picture. We identify all of the components of a decision. We work on helping you to connect with and trust your intuition. We clarify those next steps. They're customized for you. We build the plan that you can implement realistically. And then we work with the emotional and nervous system responses that arise. And if that sounds like you, I am accepting 2 new clients in August for private coaching. I'll put the link here where you can apply. It is by application only. And you go to brendawinkle.com/coaching for that, but I'll put the link in the show notes. Power is the place for sustained identity level practice. Private coaching is the place for a custom plan around a specific season or business or decision or transition. So I have some questions for you as we come to a close. Where are you asking personal development to compensate for a choice you're unwilling to make? Where are you stuck in the information gathering phase instead of taking the next obvious step? What result are you asking for while protecting the pattern that prevents that result? What situation are you trying to regulate around instead of changing the situation? And where are you saying you have no options, but the truth is you just don't love all the options available? So could you create a different option? And what's one action you can take today that you already know would move your life forward? The question is no longer, what do I know? The question is, what am I willing to do with what I know? Here's what I want you to know. I've been where you are as you're moving from the I know I need to change, I'm preparing for the change, to the implementing change, and knowing that that feels like it's just a really big, scary step. I know that feeling. You don't have to change your entire life today. That's not what I'm asking for. In fact, I think I would caution you against it. We've got to make sure some other things are in place so that you have the nervous system capacity to not blow it up. But you do need to stop pretending that insight alone is going to create a different situation for you. Your reasons matter, your history matters, your nervous system matters, your constraints matter, and your choices still matter. But that action step that you're not taking matters even more. You can do it. You can set one standard, hold a boundary, make a call, submit the application, do the thing. And if you know you're ready for more than another moment of insight, join the waitlist for power. That is your next step. It's a year-long experience for people who are ready to build self-trust, strengthen discernment, and regulate their nervous systems and practice taking aligned action in real life. We're not chasing perfection here. We are building the capacity to stop abandoning ourselves when looking at change gets to be uncomfortable. And you can join the waitlist in the link in the show notes. And if you're facing a specific decision or need a personalized plan or want some business energy work or insight, private coaching might be a better next step. And the information's in the show notes. You don't need another generic answer. Might need clear, individualized support for the life you're actually living. Keep in mind that the amount of personal access you have to me is very different in private coaching compared to power, and the price reflects that. You already know more than you think you know, and the next chapter is shaped by what you're willing to do with what you know. I love you and I believe in you. And I know that you're ready to take that next step. Bye for now. Until next time.